Can you tell the story about when Grandma made lemon fluff for her bridge club?
Oh yes, I can tell that story.
With sugar.
Right. Well, the other thing that was not, or I don't know if you're recording.
Yeah.
Yeah. But the other thing that was highly unavailable were tires, rubber tires. I guess that's where I have no idea. That might have been where the rubber bands went to the war effort. But so Mother had a bridge club, and as I said, there were, sugar was scarce. You had to have a coupon. Also, like cream and stuff like that. So she made this dessert, lemon fluff, and it had to be cooled. And she set it out to cool, and the dog came and got into it. She was not a happy camper. Not a happy camper.
That dog slept outside that night.
Was that the same dog? Was that Pal?
That was Pal.
Okay. Well, tell what Pal didn't like. He did not like peas.
Peas, right. He was he was an Irish setter, a beautiful color of reddish brown. And he was a hunting dog. My dad took him hunting, and when he went hunting for quail. And so Dad always said he wasn't a very good hunting dog. He was a pet, and so but he, and my grandmother, the same one, Grandma Judy, I think she would give him an egg or something every once in a while that was a little more elaborate than just dog food. And she kind of coddled him too.
And he didn't like peas.
But you gave him table scraps.
Pardon?
You gave him table scraps for dinner.
He had table scraps, yeah.
And what would he do if there were peas in it?
Yeah. Well, one thing about Grandma Judy and her husband was, I got to think a minute. Anyway, I'll think of it.
Grandpa something.
Yeah. I don't know why I can't think of his name, but he was Will, but I can't remember what we called him. Anyway, they were divorced, and he divorced my grandma, Gertie, for another woman. So there was hard feelings, of course. Well, but before that took place, Grandma Gertie and Grandpa did not want my dad to marry my mother because my mother was Catholic. And Grandpa was you remember what I told you before about a Mason?
Oh.
And Masons were like the Ku Klux Klan in their thinking. So that was a bone of contention.
That was your grandpa, was a Mason?
Yes.
Okay.
So actually, Grandpa was William A. Nowers. My dad was William S. Nowers. And so he was called Little Bill. And so Grandpa was just Grandpa, I guess. And my dad was called, he worked as Stanley. I mean, he used his middle name.
Wasn't your dad's name Stanley Urban?
Yes, yes, I'm rethinking.
Okay.
That's a lie.
I said,
Stanley, yes, it was Stanley Irvin Nowers,
I was
S-I-N.
like, wait a minute.
And
But he was still called Little Bill.
He was
because
still-
known
right.
as Bill.
that's right. So, anyway, so there was that kind of conflict at that level of our generations.
Yeah.
And so in a sense now, although there was no antagonism, but there was just kind of, people didn't understand. In our little town, there were 3 Catholic families, and that was all. And no Catholic church. We had to drive away to another town that was about 8 or 10 miles away for church, or to another town in a different direction that was 10 miles away, where I went to high school the senior year. So, and then there were 2 Lutheran churches, 2 different synods of Lutheran churches, and Presbyterian, and Methodist. And my dad and my grandma were Methodist. But we, as kids, you know, there was no strangeness. We were just kids, and everybody played together, and we didn't go to each other's churches for the most part, although we were allowed to go to Bible study at the Lutheran church that was just across the corner, and went to, I remember going to some like New Year's Eve party, but so we weren't excluded.
Good.
And as a side note to that, for the war, there was a Jewish family that was brought to safety in the United States and settled there. And I have no idea how they would come to a little podunk town, but they were the only Jewish people around, and there wasn't a synagogue in sight. That was not, that was a Protestant, you know, and pretty conservative Protestant
Area.
Overall.
Well, you mentioned that the Masons were part of the Ku Klux Klan.
No, they weren't. I mean,
They were.
they had that mentality, I think. I don't
Okay.
know that much about Masons. But
Okay.
they were.
Well, I was just curious, like, it wasn't a question written down or anything, but did you see, like, racism or anything like that in your growing up or throughout your life?
There were no colored people allowed in town. They could not.
Allowed at all?
You know, they may be around. We had none living in town, but you know, people could pass through or go to buy groceries, I guess. I don't know that, but I know that they were supposed to be out of town after dark, not left in town.
Wow.
Now in the district high school, we had, I don't know, maybe 3 or 4, and they were athletes. They were, some of them, and were on. They were on the football team. I don't remember any on the basketball team, but they were on the football team. And we had an incident in high school when one of the girls from Steelville at a danced with one of the colored boys, and it was scandalous.
Wow.
Nothing happened that I know. I mean, there was no aftermath except that, people could not accept that at all. My dad was a racist. My grandpa was a racist. It wasn't all that evident in my dad because there weren't around, but we used to go to Florida where my granddad lived, and for summer vacations. And so that was when I probably learned that Dad had racist thoughts. I don't know about Mother, I don't think so. At least I never heard anything like that.
Well, your dad told me one time, Grandpa told me one time that you guys were going to have a school dance and somebody wanted to bring in a black band. And he said no, and other parents said no way.
Oh, yeah, I don't even remember that.
Music for your dance.
I don't remember that at all.
I remember hearing that story too.
Yeah, he told me himself.
Well, I don't know if the microphones picked that up, so I'm just gonna repeat it.
Yeah.
It can?
Yeah.
Okay, cool. Cool. So moving on after your like childhood and everything, you went straight to university and studied nursing.
It was not university per se. I did not get a baccalaureate degree. I went to the Washington University School of Nursing. Well, it wasn't even that. It was Barnes Hospital, but it was connected. The medical school and everything was connected to Barnes Hospital. So we did have in our class, took all of the same classes together. Girls that had 2 years of undergraduate at Washington University and then came into the nursing program at Barnes Hospital. And Barnes Hospital was where we had our clinical work. So we got the same classes as they did. And we did the same clinicals as they did. But they went on and when they graduated, they had a baccalaureate. And they had more, I don't know what they called it, but management type classes that we did not have.
Okay.
And I always thought that was kind of unfair, but I understand it as, I understood it after I got out. But that gave me a lifelong yearning to get a baccalaureate degree, which I didn't get until I was in my 40s. But I did finally.
And why did you choose nursing?
Well, in those days, you had a choice. Girls, women, had a choice. Nursing, secretary, or teacher. And I could...
That was it.
That was it. Now, my Aunt Margaret, that was my dad's sister, his only sibling. My Aunt Margie worked in an office. She was just a typist or receptionist or, just a... But she used to take me there to... She would let me ride the bus in another town in northern Illinois. But when I went to stay with her, I used to go to stay with her and my Grandma Gertie. Grandma Gertie lived with Aunt Margie, and I'd go visit them. And so either Grandma Gertie would take me down on the bus, or when I got old enough, I got to take the bus by myself down to her office, and I could play around with a stapler, office stuff. And that was kind of attractive, but fun. And a teacher, I could have been a teacher, I guess, but I chose nursing. And so the nearest schools were in St. Louis, which was about 55, 60 miles away. And there were umpteen schools there, but I went to Barnes, and then there was one, St. John's, I believe it was, that was really nearby. And they did have baccalaureate program. And I was immature. I did not have any counseling that said you need to go, you need to go for your baccalaureate. I wanted to do it and get it over and be a nurse. My mistake. But anyway, so the summer between high school graduation and when I went into nursing in 1949, I worked in the town where I went to high school, 10 miles away, and I worked in a doctor had a little hospital in his home, and I went to work as an aide.
Okay.
And I got to do things that in this day and age would be illegal.
What did you do?
Well, I helped give word search, dripped onto anesthesia. Ether.
Wow.
Yes. Yeah, that now we have masters in
Anesthesiology.
master's degree nurses that do that, or maybe I don't know, maybe they have to have a PhD by now. I don't know. But anyway, well, things and the patient, there was an RN there that was there, but she wasn't on premises all the time. She lived there, slept there, and I worked nights. So, if anything came up, we could get her. Mm-hmm. But I think she might have been a little bit addicted to
Ether.
red pills.
Codeine?
Codeine. Codeine.
Wow.
Red capsules. I think she had a bit of that. So this was a little bit dysfunctional place to work, but I worked the summer.
Sounds like you learned a lot in that summer, and then you said, "I'm gonna do nursing."
Well, I'm trying to think. So I saw my first childbirth there, which
Wow.
that is not something that and I think that may have been where I gave it the anesthesia. But, the doctor was saying how much to do, give a drip, that I remember. I wouldn't say that's my, there were things that that were, I didn't consider them too unpleasant that I can remember. I remember one patient, a man who had had a stroke, and he was paralyzed on one side, and he was angry, and he would yell, and he would, and it was kind of frightening to a young person. But that's the only specific one that I can remember in that scenario.
So if you.
But I loved nursing. I loved my classes. I loved the clinical work. So I loved it. Still do.
If you grew up now, like 2024, would you say you would choose nursing? You think you would have chosen nursing?
Well, I think I would. I've spent a lot of my career urging people, other nurses, aides and licensed practical nurses and others that were getting a degree to go into nursing, that it's a wonderful career.
Yeah.
You could do anything, and once you get your degree. And I mean, look at Lauren. Look what Lauren has done.
I don't want to interject really, but I'm interested in how much it costs to take the bus, to go to a movie, or to buy a loaf of bread.
To cost to go to
A movie.
To take the bus, to buy a loaf of bread.
Well, we didn't have a, well, I did take the bus in St. Louis.
How much would have that been?
I have no idea. 50 cents maybe? Not much.
Not even that.
Probably not.
It was less than that.
Yeah, I bet it was less.
What about like
Or
a
movies. I didn't go to movies. I was strictly, we had a dorm that we had to live in, a dorm right there next to the hospital. And, well, are you thinking of when we were kids? And it was 15 cents,
to go to a
20
movie?
cents maybe.
Wow.
And there was a little juke joint next door where we hung out as teenagers. But what I did do when George and I were first married, I kept details of how much it cost, and I wrote in, what it cost for the rent where we lived, for groceries, for all of that, and car payments, and I kept that for 50 years. I think I just got rid of it when we moved to Louisiana, and it was eye-opening. I don't know if it's still around here or not. I might have put it in there.
I would let that be fun.
Yeah.
It says the bus fare in St. Louis in 1963 was 25 cents.
25 cents.
So that was
So I was
15
close.
years. Well, 15 years earlier, it probably was a lot cheaper than that.
Yeah.
And jumping back to nursing, what Lauren, actually speaking of Lauren, wanted to know your most rewarding experience.
Lauren?
Yeah. Your granddaughter.
Everyone contributed to the questions.
As a nurse.
As a nurse?
Yeah.
Oh, no question about that. My most rewarding, well, let me rephrase that. My most rewarding experience was the time I spent as a combination teacher and nurse at the university. And the most rewarding part of that was working with those students. No, I'm okay. It's just that the things that we did, that I did with them. We had wellness clinics in the senior centers that we took the students to. So it was just really fun and rewarding. And thank you, Luke. And the people that we met, the patients, well, they weren't really patients, but they loved the students. And, the student would sit and talk to a patient,
Resident.
Client.
what?
Client.
Well, client, yeah. Take their blood pressure, weigh them, and talk to them and help them. And they just, it was so sweet. And then we took them, I took them and on home visits, and they were assigned to a person in a home, usually a single, and they would have to do a full assessment of the family and their circumstances and everything as part of this, and assess, go to visit them once a week for 6 weeks or something like that, but they kept the same family. And it was wonderful. They just, every bit of it. And then they spent time, with not much time, but a few days for a week with the school nurse. So they got that school nursing, because this was community health. So, and that has had an impact on my view of life and my values. Because, look, community health, you look at the big picture, not just one client. And you're in a hospital, you do one client at a time. I never liked that. I never did it to an extent. I did so little it doesn't count. But you look at things as a whole, and this still colors my life. I can help somebody, one person, and I'm not bragging, but we had a housekeeper by the name of Delia, a lovely, sweet black woman. Well, Delia, of course, was not wealthy. She lived paycheck to paycheck. She worked for another person, the Trasses, and at the same time as she was working for us. And I think there was somebody else maybe that I knew, but I don't remember that clearly. But I was the one that initiated paying her Social Security taxes. So she would get some Social Security benefits when she needed it. And I was the one that raised her salary, and then told her, helped her to talk to the others to raise her, what I paid her. It was from 20 to 25 or something like that. And one time, she had to have a couple of front teeth pulled. And she told me, she wasn't going to church. And I said, well, why are you not going to church? Well, I'm ashamed to go with these teeth. I said, well, let's go get your teeth fixed. So I helped pay for her dental work.
That's nice.
So that's the kind of thing that but looking after, that's a single thing. Well, a single person, and I was thinking when I started this about how you are able to, well, let me just switch to what I'm doing today in this era of being as old as I am. Kathy and I can't remember if Bob was alive. I think so. I think he may have helped with this. And another couple that are in our faith group. So there's been a cluster of 4 people. Once a month, they make sandwiches. They make meat and cheese sandwiches, and so they make about 100 sandwiches. I don't remember how many. I helped do that once. It was a blast. It's a fun thing to do. And then Kathy gets all the stuff at Costco for the sandwich making. She buys mandarin orange bags, bags of apple, bakes cookies. They provide. So they take this once a month to homeless, a place that feeds the homeless. It's a Francis mission, and this mission is started by a Franciscan priest who takes no government money. It's all donations and that sort of thing, like donated food. And for a while, they were making soup, big pots of soup. And one of our therapists here at La Vida Llena, when she was able, her name is Sue, would make 3 pots of soup and take it every week. She would do that. So that's the kind of mission it was. And so I can't do that anymore. But I can pay for it. I make a donation that Kathy gets the things from Costco. So that's doing things on the way I like to do it. What do they call that?
Community level.
There's a word. I'll have to look that one up. I've got it written down. But it means spreading the gift, that it multiplies that way.
That's very nice.